had was he took things from the news and dropped them down the memory hole. He literally put them into a place where they were burned up, and you could no longer find them after that. They changed history. Well, the search engines, because they are the place where we go for information, have that power. And on that, let me put in one more plug for Startpage. The thing I love about Startpage is that they are a meta search engine. They're kind of like a proxy for you. They go out, you type in your search term, they go out to 11 different search engines, and they get those search engines' results, and then they serve them back to you. So you're not just relying on one search engine like the Chinese people on Google. You have the best results from all 11 search engines. So even if the government decided to censor a particular topic off of one or two or three top search engines, Startpage would still return it to you because they're going out to even the smaller search engines and getting their results back. So it's kind of neat. It's a way, and by the way, those search engines don't see you. They only see Startpage. So it's sort of like Startpage works like your valet. They go out for you. Capture all of the answers from the other search engines and then serve them back to you privately. So it's really a very, very cool service. And what I was going to say about that 7-day challenge is that's how long it takes. It's like quitting smoking. It's like, going on a diet. The first couple of days are really hard, but then once you get into the groove and you hit your stride, then you get much better at it. So what I encourage people to do, and I'm stunned at the number of people who will hear me say, do an interview like this. They'll hear all about it. They'll agree that this is dangerous, and then 10 minutes later, they're back on Google or they're back in Yahoo.
But remember that part of that has to do with the fact that we have been subconsciously programmed to go to Google.
It's a verb. Google this, Google that,
exactly.
Google me, Google you,
exactly.
Google blah, blah,
it's
blah.
almost
Yeah.
It's its own meme.
It is.
Yeah, it's programmed in our subconscious. It's already in the reptilian part of the brain. That's what part of branding does. We do it whether we want to do it or not.
Isn't that wild?
Yep.
Yeah, it's the reason why these companies spend so much money, to get the advertising and to get your awareness. And the biggest coup that Google could have ever scored was turning itself into a verb. Google this, Google that. Oh, I'll Google you. I'll Google. I was just reading something the other day that said you ought to Google yourself periodically to make sure that blah blah blah. I thought, gosh, no, Startpage yourself. Come on. We need to break out of the mentality of that because it really, every time we say Google something, we're transmitting this message to all the people who hear us. Absolutely.
Do you want to make some time right now for RFID education, or would you prefer to do that on a separate show?
I think I'll hit that on a separate time. I'd love to talk about Shadow Government, though, our new film.
Share about it.
Okay, yeah, I'm super excited that we've got a brand new blockbuster documentary film out that covers a lot of this stuff. And, as we all realize when we try to talk about these kinds of issues, and I'm sure that you're totally aware of exactly what I'm talking about, Kim, when you try to say, look out for this or be careful of that, there's a certain response that you get where people want to, go to their kitchen drawer, get out the Reynolds wrap, and make you a little hat and say, "You're paranoid. This isn't real. This is conspiracy theory." And because we've all had that response, we wanted to put together a film that would expose all of this in a way that no one could argue with, that is absolutely ironclad, airtight, bounce a quarter off of it. And we wanted to do it in a way that was entertaining and interesting at the same time. And the result is our blockbuster new documentary, Shadow Government, which is flying off the shelves. It's been fabulously reviewed. It's hot off the presses. And what we did, it's a 90-minute film where you've got the story of a guy going about his day. I don't want to give away the story, but you see all the ways he's watched from the time he gets up in the morning till he gets to work, in his car and his cell phone, et cetera, et cetera. And then he gets a very disturbing phone call at work where the FBI calls him in and wants to have a discussion with him over something perfectly legal that he did, but they want to ask some questions and say, are these the actions of a peace-loving person? And it's just like the MIAC report, potential domestic terrorists because you were doing something that they didn't like, even though it was probably a good thing you were doing. In the film, to get around this sort of black helicopter sort of stereotype that people have about these topics, we brought in some of the top-notch academic experts in the country. So Shadow Government has interviews with Harry Lewis, the former dean of Harvard College and a good friend of mine. He's in there talking about the research he did for his new film, or his new book, Blown to Bits. You've got LaTanya Sweeney, who is a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, talking about her research into these invasions of privacy. You've got G. Edward Griffin, author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, an expert on the Federal Reserve, talking about the Federal Reserve and the sort of move towards global banking and global government. You've got Michael Shaw, who's an expert on Agenda 21, talking about how the UN wants to control whether you can cut down a tree in your backyard or whether you can drink water from your own well. It's just expert after expert sharing their information, their research in a way that's absolutely unimpeachable. And by the time you get to the end of the film, you are really there's no way that you can say this is not happening. And I think that's the kind of wake-up call that we need today. I would love to see this film, Shadow Government, in the hands of every person in the country. I wish I had a budget that I could mail it out literally to every household in America and encourage people to sit down and watch it. And the reason I love it, and I know it has been successful as a film, is not only, like I said, it's flying off the shelves and it's gotten great reviews, but I've got a volunteer for my daily radio show who's been working with me for about a year. And she's a high school student. She has a friend who's a high school student. She said this guy would constantly tease her and make fun of her and say, "Why are you wasting your time on all this black helicopter stuff?" She gave him a copy of Shadow Government recently. He rolled his eyes, but he sat down and watched it. And after he watched this film, he came to her and he said, "I want to apologize to you. I've been a real jerk. I've been totally wrong. You were right all along, and I want to know how I can get involved and join you in the fight." And wow. That, waking up young people like that is, that gives me goosebumps. That's why I do the work that I do. And that's why everybody listening, I would love for you to get a copy of Shadow Government. Let me tell you where you can find it. You can you can see all the trailers and excerpts if you go to shadowgovernment-movie.com. You can also go to Cloud 10 Pictures. That's who produced it. I was the supervising producer on it, by the way. But Cloud 10 with a T-E-N, cloud10pictures.com. You can watch a online version of it if you go to cleantv.com. I think it's $3.99 to watch the full 90-minute movie online.
That's great.
Or you could get a signed copy from me if you go to KatherineAlbrecht.com. It's a little bit tougher because you got to print out the order form and wait a couple of days because I don't do credit cards. But KatherineAlbrecht.com under products, and I'll get you a signed copy of it. But regardless of how you do it, get this video into your hands, watch the movie, and then please pass it on. Share it with a young person. Share it with somebody else who needs to know this. Because unless we wake up and realize that, there's a reason they call it the net. It's catching us. There's a reason they call it the web. Webs are about trapping people. There's a reason these technologies have the names that they have, and unless we wake up to the web that's being built around us to essentially destroy and eliminate our freedoms ultimately, it's going to be too late. So it's absolutely imperative that people wake up to these things. So my advice, I got three pieces of advice. Switch from Google, Startpage, or Bing. Take the 7-day Startpage challenge. And after 7 days, if you are not content with Startpage, then go back to being observed by Big Brother. But I'll tell you this, after 7 days, think back and say, what searches did I just do over this last week that they now don't know, that are now just lost into the sands of time, just like footprints on a beach, washed away. And it's such a fabulous feeling to know that nobody's looking over your shoulder. So that's my first advice. Startpage.com, S-T-A-R-T, startpage.com. My second piece of advice, please get and watch a copy of Shadow Government and pass it along to somebody else. Hold a screening in your home. Show it to your relatives, whoever you can get to sit down and watch this movie. That's online at shadowgovernment-movie.com or cleantv.com. And KatherineAlbrecht.com is my third piece of advice. If people are interested in these themes, I do a daily 2-hour radio show where I talk about all of these topics, RFID, new technologies. We've been talking about the census. We talk about health. We talk about agribusiness and GMO foods. We talk about the whole big picture of all of the threats that we face across the board with a focus on technology. And you can find my radio show at KatherineAlbrecht.com, and I'll spell that. It's Katherine, and my last name is Albrecht, Albrecht. And on that website, you can find a link to our best-selling book, Spychips, all about RFID. I know we didn't get a chance to talk about that, but
I'd like to invite you back. What do you think about YouTube? Because it's obviously owned by Google, controlled by Google.
the entire internet is now owned and controlled by Google. It seems. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's
not much.
Go to any website